Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cracking open the notes on a scientific breakthrough that almost immediately became a geopolitical nightmare. We're plunging into the world of Dr. Alex Mercer, a geneticist who believed he found, well, a kind of cheat code for human evolution.
And this isn't just about the science. This is about the exact moment he realized that knowledge this big it's inherently dangerous.
Yeah.
So our mission today is really to dissect his early notes, the raw stuff, specifically around this human potential serum.
A moment of discovery.
Exactly. It's a story about this incredible gain in knowledge set against an extreme and very immediate external risk. We're tracking how Mercer went from this quiet genius in a lab to, well, a target.
And the science itself is what really drew me in. I mean, he didn't just find some known gene.
Oh, not at all.
He spent years looking for patterns, but instead he found this tiny, really unusual DNA sequence that was kind of hidden away.
And the source material says it reacted to two specific things.
Pleasure and awareness.
That combination is it's fascinating. It suggests he wasn't just looking to build a better brain. He was maybe looking for a path to an optimal experience.
So the big question he asks, the one that kicks this all off, is could this be a literal code hidden inside our genes?
A code just waiting for the right key to unlock it.
And if you look at his philosophy, he wasn't trying to cure disease. His focus was all on unlocking potential.
Pure potentials.
So he creates this serum, this clear liquid, designed to do just that, to turn that key. The hypothesis was just monumental. Activate the code and you get heightened senses, better cognition, and pleasure beyond normal limits.
The blueprint for a human upgrade, right there in a vial.
Which raises a huge question right away.
Why pleasure?
Exactly. Why is pleasure part of the equation for evolution?
Is he actually unlocking our true capacity, or is he just tapping into some kind of, a highly sophisticated biological addiction that's just masquerading as enlightenment?
That tension is there from the very first second he decides to self-experiment.
The tiny dose.
Yeah. This is where it stops being theory and gets very real very fast. He injects the liquid, and it's not a slow onset.
No, the notes are clear. It's immediate. It's profound.
We really should slow down here and look at what he actually felt, because those sensations defined everything he was chasing.
Okay, so he describes a wave of warmth, gentle at first, like a soft glow inside, he says.
But that doesn't last.
No, it ramps up. It gets stronger, sharper. He describes it as a fire awakening every nerve.
So this is not sedation. This is...
Ignition. That's the perfect word for it.
And that fire, it immediately translates to his senses. Right.
Instantly, his whole world just gets amplified to an almost unbearable degree.
We read that the hum from the lab equipment suddenly sounded louder, more alive.
Right, and he could smell the chemicals in the air with this overwhelming clarity. He could even see the faintest dust particles just floating in a beam of light.
But that's only half of it.
Because it's coupled with that feeling, that overwhelming, deep pleasure. Physical, mental, emotional, all at once.
And his mind.
Racing. Ideas weren't just forming, they were connecting instantly. He says it was like sparks jumping between neurons. He wasn't just thinking faster, he was thinking better.
It's the ultimate high-risk, high-reward moment. He knew right away it's working.
Absolutely.
But let's pause there. Does he have any doubt? Because his assistant, Maya, she certainly did.
Yeah, she's the voice of reason here. Her reaction really highlights the whole ethical problem.
What happened?
She walks in, sees him, his eyes are wide, his hands are trembling, and she's just terrified for him.
Okay.
She says, "But Alex, you haven't tested the safety, the side effects." Her concern isn't that the science is wrong. It's that his ego, this rush he's on, is making him skip basic safety protocols.
And that rush, that urgency, it just leads straight to escalation.
It does. The notes say that as the first dose wore off, he could feel his body adapting, evolving even.
But he wanted more.
He needed more data, stronger confirmation. So he decides to go from that tiny introductory dose to a much, much larger injection.
And this is where things really shift.
Completely. This is where it moves beyond just heightened senses to total radical perception.
So that warmth he felt before.
It's not warmth anymore. He says it's electric.
Electric. Wow.
And his senses just explode. He's hearing the faint buzz of electricity in the walls.
Oh, wait.
He's feeling these tiny vibrations in the floorboards. He can smell the chemicals, sure, but then he adds this new strange detail. He starts tasting the air.
Tasting the air? I mean, what does that even mean?
It's like the boundary between him and the room is just dissolving.
And what about the data? the graphs on his computer.
He says they looked alive, like they weren't just information he was reading, they were pulsing information directly into his mind.
It sounds less like science and more like
Yeah.
some kind of communion with reality itself.
But that much input has a cost. The notes mention this one moment of just total overload, a blinding jolt.
And he collapses.
He collapses. His whole system just shorts out for a second.
And he gets back up.
He does. And that temporary failure is followed by this ultimate clarity. When he opens his eyes, he's not processing the world anymore. He sort of is the world.
He could see every molecule of air, every reflection of light.
Every particle. And he was so tuned in, he could actually sense Maya's physical state.
Her heartbeat.
He could hear her rapidly beating heart from across the lab.
That's the payoff. The quote in his notes just says it all. It's perception, awareness, understanding. It's like being everywhere at once.
He'd done it. He'd unlocked what he saw as a limitless potential.
But here's the problem. When you can see and understand everything.
You also see what's coming for you.
Exactly.
And that's the pivot. This is where the science fiction story becomes a high-stakes thriller.
Because that breakthrough didn't happen in a vacuum.
Not at all. While he's having this profound internal discovery, seeing molecules and hearing heartbeats, forces he couldn't have imagined were already moving.
So how did he know? His old self would have missed it.
But his new self couldn't. The first warning signs weren't, a loud noise. They were disturbances.
Disturbances in what?
In the flow of reality he could now see. He notes a shadow flickering across the lab window in a way that just didn't make sense with the light. And then he felt it, more than saw it. A pair of eyes watched him intently, calculating.
So by activating this gene?
He basically lit a beacon. He became visible to people operating in the shadows. And that simple experiment suddenly had the power to change everything.
And the threat becomes very real, very quickly.
It crystallizes. We get this unambiguous description.
The black SUV.
A sleek black SUV parked across the street, its headlights just scanning the lab windows, shadows moving inside.
This is not a coincidence.
No, this is organized surveillance. Yeah. And then it gets even worse.
The figure gets out.
The figure gets out. The description is so chilling. Tall, dark, deliberate, watching, calculating, waiting for the right moment to strike.
And the really compelling part is that his new abilities are what confirm the danger. He doesn't need to go check the security cameras.
No, his heightened senses, his new brain, they detect the watchers instantly. He recognizes their unfriendly intentions, almost like an animal would.
So he turns to his volunteers
and says, we might not be alone. Not because he saw something, but because he could feel their presence. He could sense the disturbance they were causing.
And what about Maya? How does she react?
Her fear is described as almost paralyzing. She knows. In that one moment, she knows their lives, and maybe the future of this discovery just entered a terrifying new phase.
All because of his genius and, I guess, his hubris.
So we land on this core conflict. The scientist achieves this incredible breakthrough, unlocking limitless potential.
But that evolution immediately paints a huge target on his back.
Exactly. The internal rush of discovery slams right into the external pressure of these hostile, unknown groups.
And that really sets the stage for everything that comes next. They have to continue the work. You can't unknow something like this.
It's right.
But now they have to be careful in a way they never even considered before. The game has started, and it's much, much bigger than their little lab.
The knowledge they gained put them directly in the crosshairs. The moment they became enlightened, they also had to become survivors.
So as you think about this incredible moment, this transformation and this immediate danger, here's a final thought to consider. If human evolution means gaining the capacity to see and understand everything, does that newfound clarity also mean you lose the ability to ever hide? To ever keep your greatest discoveries safe from those who would use it for control? Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex source materials to get at what they really mean. Today, we've got a fascinating set of documents. They detail Dr. Alex Mercer's top-secret project on something he called the Serum of Collective Consciousness.
That's right. And it's a pretty volatile stack of reports we're looking at. Our mission here is to track the experiment's progression. We're going from the very careful setup and, the initial
That's
success.
Dazzling, according to these notes.
Absolutely. But then right into the ethical crisis, the uncontrollable biological changes, and finally this huge security nightmare that just unfolds. We're really looking at that collision point between, I guess, raw scientific ambition and moral responsibility.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Mercer's strategy. I mean, the sources make it clear this wasn't random. He was incredibly methodical.
Oh, completely. He handpicked 5 volunteers, all of them, brilliant minds. Genetics, medicine, theoretical science.
And what really stands out to me is the diversity. Different ages, different backgrounds, different physiologies. It feels like he was trying to control for variables.
Exactly. And there's a psychological profile in here, too, which is fascinating. They weren't just chosen for being smart. They were chosen because they could keep a secret, a profound one. And they all had this hunger for discovery.
So they were injected with a very small, controlled dose.
Mm.
He was really testing the limits, wasn't he? He called it activating latent potential.
He did.
But before we go on, what did he actually mean by latent potential? That sounds very dramatic. What was the biological target here?
That's a great question because it's not some vague, magical idea. Mercer's notes define it as the brain's untapped reserve of synaptic plasticity.
So its ability to form new connections.
Right, and reorganize them. The serum was basically a super potent neuromodulator. It was designed to strip away all the cognitive noise and just accelerate data processing, like, exponentially.
And the results were almost immediate. The documents described the sensory phase. And it wasn't a slow build at all. It was like flipping a switch.
It really was. Within minutes, the whole world shifted for them. One volunteer, the geneticist, she reported suddenly being aware of the molecular structure of the air around her.
Not just thinking about it, but feeling it.
As a tactile sensation, yeah. Another was just completely overwhelmed by colors and sounds that are normally invisible to us, the whole electromagnetic spectrum.
It sounds like an incredible amount of information hitting the brain all at once. Was there any hint of the chaos to come, or was it just pure euphoria at this point?
Initially, it was euphoric, and that's what made the later ethical questions so complicated. The reports just described this deep, all-consuming pleasure. They were learning and feeling on a scale nobody had ever imagined. That success, I think, is what blinded Mercer to the risk.
Okay, and this is where it gets really wild. It moves beyond just enhancing one person's senses. The collective connection. How did the sources say this even worked? Merging 5 separate minds.
Well, the serum seems to have triggered a kind of instantaneous neural synchronization. Imagine 5 brains suddenly running on the same clock cycle, sharing signals across the room without any wires. It created this temporary external neural network.
So not telepathy then?
No, not really. It was shared cognition. And that's when one of the volunteers just yells out, "Do you feel it? It's like we are connected." That's the moment Alex realized, he hadn't just enhanced 5 people, he'd created a single, powerful, collective consciousness.
But if they were all processing faster and feeling deeper, why did it immediately spiral into chaos? You'd think it would lead to some kind of organized, superior thought. Did he just miscalculate how much a person could handle?
Precisely. That's the key insight from his colleague Maya. The serum gave them the ability to sync up, but the human brain, it's just not built for that. It's designed for a single person's filtered reality. The sources call it a data flood. It just short-circuited everything.
That transition must have been horrifying. What were the first signs that the system was, breaking down?
The physical collapse was fast and brutal. We see the first real warnings here. One volunteer's heart rhythm becomes totally irregular. Faint tremors start running through his body.
And the psychological effects.
They intensified right alongside it. Another volunteer started laughing, just laughing uncontrollably. And the notes specify this wasn't joy. It was his brain's manic attempt to just discharge this overwhelming emotional data.
And the serum itself. Mercer realized it wasn't just a static chemical. He wrote that it was responding, adapting, even evolving. What was the theory there?
The speculation in the files is that the serum sensed the instability. It sensed the hosts were rejecting it, and it tried to fix it. It tried to resequence their neurology on the fly to find some kind of stability.
And that led to what?
Truly unnatural behavior. One volunteer started speaking in these strange, repetitive mathematical phrases. The theory documented is that this was literally his DNA communicating, a primal biological language trying to find a new baseline for thought.
And then it all peaked. The collective consciousness stopped sharing information and started amplifying pain.
Yes, that's the nightmare scenario. Every individual fear became a shared, magnified terror. Simple anxiety became this profound, collective hysteria. When one volunteer collapsed, clutching his chest in a panic, it sent a shockwave through all of them. Their bodies all started trembling violently at the exact same time.
And this is the point where Maya's concerns go from a quiet warning to a full-blown confrontation. She saw this was a disaster in the making.
Absolutely. The documents show her confronting Alex directly. Her argument was simple. The harm was now completely outweighing any possible benefit. She flat out asks him if he's pursuing a breakthrough or disaster. She accuses him of playing with lives.
How did Alex justify it? He was still all in on the idea that this was a necessary risk, right?
His notes lay it all out. He argued that this is how humanity advances, by taking catastrophic risks. He saw the volunteers, even in their broken state, as the future. For him, this chaos was just a difficult but necessary step in an evolutionary leap.
So while all this is happening, this massive internal meltdown, both physically and philosophically, an external threat is closing in. The sources say a shadow organization had already detected the experiment. How?
That's where the science becomes a security threat. The internal chaos, the synchronized neural firing, it was putting out these massive anomalous energy signatures that could be detected from a distance.
So they weren't just guessing, they had hard data.
Exactly. And the organization is described as just cold and calculating. They weren't interested in ethics, they were interested in strategic control.
And they were patient. The image in the documents of them just waiting outside in a black SUV, it's chilling. Just watching, analyzing.
They knew the perfect moment to move in, and that moment arrived right as the internal chaos hit its peak. Suddenly, the alarms blare. Red lights are flashing everywhere.
External breach.
External breach. Security monitors confirm it. The agents are moving in. And these aren't just, soldiers. They were scanning the facility, calculating their entry based on the serum's known volatility. They were prepared to contain it, neutralize it, or maybe even worse, to exploit it.
So you have this perfect storm. The internal biological collapse and the external strategic threat, all at once. And it pushes Alex into this impossible choice. It's not about his science anymore. It's about survival.
That's the tension we're left with. It's all intertwined now. The discovery, the power, the morality. And he has to decide in an instant. Does he surrender his work to these agents, which might stop the chaos? Or does he fight to protect a serum that could either save or destroy humanity, all while he can hear their footsteps getting closer to the lab door?
So we've seen the sheer scope here, from accelerating synaptic plasticity and creating this incredible collective mind, all the way to uncontrollable chaos and biological rewriting.
Yeah.
We've really analyzed how quickly a quest for human advancement can turn into a battle between scientific hubris and, well, just dire consequences.
The stakes are astronomical, especially because the serum is adaptable. As Maya warned, if this thing gets out, there's no coming back. The whole story just hinges on control. Control of the volunteers, control of the serum itself, and control of this secret.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener, to consider. If a breakthrough could genuinely unlock our latent potential, grant us a collective awareness, and, push humanity to its next evolutionary stage, but it came with biological instability, immense personal trauma, and the certainty that every global power would want to control it, what level of risk is acceptable?
Is that initial chaos just a necessary price to pay for the evolution of our entire species? Or would the gift itself ultimately become the curse?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in this really volatile cocktail of ambition and, well, chaos.
Absolutely.
Our sources lay out the trajectory of a top-secret scientific project. It's called the Serum of Collective Consciousness Experiment.
Led by the brilliant, maybe too brilliant, Dr. Alex Mercer and his partner, Maya.
And we're going beyond just the story today. Our goal is to really extract the critical knowledge from these documents to understand the specific mechanics of how this serum was supposed to unlock human potential.
And, more importantly, why it went so wrong so fast.
Exactly. Why it violently exceeded its parameters and the high-stakes moral collapse that happened just as these external forces were closing in.
And the documents right from the start, they frame this as a story of discovery pushing way, way past ethics. Mercer wasn't just chasing a new medicine.
Yeah.
He was chasing what he saw as the next stage of human evolution. He reached out to 5, quote, carefully chosen volunteers.
All brilliant minds in their own right?
Yeah.
Genetics, physics.
Oh, yeah, highly specialized. And the selection wasn't random at all. They were individuals driven by the same profound, almost consuming hunger for knowledge that Alex himself had.
So that ensures secrecy, but it also means they're all kind of drinking the same Kool-Aid.
It does. It ensures a shared belief in the goal, which was activating what the sources call latent potential, basically the untapped hardware in the human brain.
That framing is so crucial. It really sets up the intellectual arrogance that we see play out later.
Complete.
Alex wasn't just administering a drug. He was like curating a revolutionary team. So, okay, let's unpack this. The small, controlled dose of the serum is administered. What happens? What are the immediate measurable shifts?
While initially there's this period of just tense waiting, nothing. But the sources note that when the shift began, it wasn't some sudden jolt.
Yeah.
It was a subtle, almost pervasive change in their sensory input. We are talking about senses sharpening so rapidly that the world just transformed.
And the descriptions we have of that are just incredible, almost poetic. It's not just, clearer vision.
Wow.
It's a totally new way of interpreting reality. One volunteer in the clinical notes talks about becoming aware of the texture of the air.
I mean, what does that even mean? It suggests this sudden, intense sensitivity to, barometric pressure, the flow of molecules in the room. It's incredible.
And scientifically, the sources imply the serum didn't just boost existing senses.
No, it essentially rewired their brain's filtering capacity. Another volunteer reported being completely flooded by colors and sounds invisible to normal human perception.
Which suggests the activation of dormant pathways. They're perceiving different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, frequencies we can't hear.
That's the implication. And for Alex, seeing this, it must have been complete and total vindication.
Oh, absolute exhilaration.
The sources say he could barely contain himself. He's just whispering, "It's working." I mean, his theory was proven. The serum was spreading, activating latent potential.
And that high, that peak, leads directly into the emotional response, right?
Yeah.
When we move past pure senses and into something much, much deeper.
Yes. The documents describe an all-consuming pleasure. Deep, complex is the phrase they use. It suggests the serum just triggered this massive release of powerful neurotransmitters.
Like a chemically induced spiritual awakening.
Exactly. And this pleasure, it manifested differently in each person. Some were just lost in total euphoria.
Others were more thoughtful.
Right. Some fell into the silent, thoughtful awe, and that variation is key. The serum amplified the individual's existing psychological state. It wasn't a one-size-fits-all high. It was personal evolution just on hyperspeed.
Which brings us to the critical turning point in the data. Because that controlled euphoria was catastrophically short-lived.
Very.
What the sources call the second wave began almost immediately, and this is where the serum stops being a catalyst and becomes this uncontrollable self-modifying force.
This is where it gets really alarming. Alex himself noted, with a mix of terror and wonder, I think, that the serum was responding, adapting.
So it stopped being a passive agent.
Right. It started acting as an independent variable. It was pushing the subjects further than Alex had ever accounted for in his safety margins.
The warning signs, they had to have been impossible to ignore.
They were. We read about one volunteer whose pulse becomes highly irregular, and they develop this faint, systemic tremor.
And the lab itself starts changing.
Yes. The sources mention a strange energy filling the room, making the room feel, and I'm quoting here, inexplicably alive.
Which could suggest that the sheer energy from their hyper-accelerated neural activity was somehow manifesting physically, like an electromagnetic distortion.
That's a good theory.
Yep.
And the volunteers themselves were crossing the line from just enhanced to fundamentally altered.
Give us the extreme examples. What did the sources record that signaled this complete break from normalcy?
Okay, so take the vocal changes. One volunteer starts speaking in a voice that was described as not entirely theirs.
Well, not entirely theirs.
Yeah. Uttering these strange phrases, patterns, it was almost like their DNA sequencing or some hidden language was being spoken out loud.
So it's not just amplification. It's a structural rewrite of their whole identity.
Exactly. And then you have the physical impossibility, the description of another volunteer moving unnaturally fast.
As if time had slowed down for everyone else.
Correct. The implication in Alex's own frantic notes is that the serum was accelerating cellular and neurological processes so severely that it created a visible time difference.
They were living seconds faster than normal.
Which is the moment the breakthrough becomes this destructive force of nature.
But the truly revolutionary and, frankly, terrifying realization for Alex was the collective consciousness. He hadn't just changed 5 individuals.
He had linked them.
He'd linked them.
Absolutely. He realized the serum was spreading through proximity, intertwining their perceptions, and creating a unified network of heightened awareness.
What does that even mean in this context? It wasn't just telepathy, was it?
No, it was more than that. It was shared sensory input, shared emotional experience, everything magnified.
And that shared experience amplifying both the euphoria and the rising panic is voiced by one of the volunteers who literally shouts, "Do you feel it? It's like we are connected."
Imagine that. 5 hyper-intelligent, now radically altered minds, all experiencing the same sensory explosion and escalating physical anxiety at the same time.
It magnifies the danger exponentially.
He had accidentally created a single, powerful, and rapidly destabilizing superorganism. And this, of course, forced the conflict with Maya to a breaking point.
Right, the ethical crossroad. This is where we need to spend some time, because that conflict between Alex and Maya is really the heart of this deep dive.
It is.
Maya's concern finally just boils over. She argues they have to stop now, because Alex is flying blind with no control.
And Alice's defense. He saw stopping as basically scientific cowardice, a betrayal of the potential he'd just unlocked.
He argued, humanity has always advanced by taking risks.
Exactly. He was just blinded by the initial success. He reframed the volunteers not as subjects at risk, but as the future, as undeniable proof that the serum works.
Which is such a massive oversight, isn't it? I mean, given how meticulous he was in selecting them, why didn't he build in any fail-safes, any emergency protocols for this level of overload?
That is the core failing the sources point to. He focused entirely on activation, not on control or reversal, and Maya pushes back on exactly that point.
She calls him out on it.
She does. She calls out his euphoria as a blinding agent, warning that the volunteers are changing too fast, too far. They're becoming, in her words, dangerously not human anymore.
The debate shifts from consent to really protecting what little humanity they had left.
And then that intellectual debate just crashes head-on into physical reality.
The first major warning sign.
A volunteer collapses, clutching their chest, trembling violently. And suddenly the abstract ethical crisis is a life-or-death emergency right in front of them.
And that collapse was the tipping point. Alex, for all his heightened awareness, he couldn't stabilize them quickly.
His serum-assisted senses couldn't override basic physical danger.
That moment of helplessness forced him to confront the fragility of human life.
And the awful, undeniable realization that the experiment was no longer theoretical. It was a catastrophic moral failure, and it was on his watch.
And the irony is it's tragic. Just as he's forced to confront the internal collapse of his experiment, the external world decides to intervene.
Exactly. A powerful organization, one that monitors global scientific breakthroughs, especially ones with, unusual energy signatures, had detected the emissions from his lab.
So the moral dilemma is immediately compounded by a military threat.
And the sources describe these agents with this unnerving simplicity. Their eyes were cold, calculating. They weren't curious scientists.
They were operatives, ready for containment and extraction.
And they weren't subtle about it. The black SUV pulls up outside. The agents are silent, stepping out of the shadows. Then the lab's alarms just blare.
Red lights flashing, an external breach.
And everything changes. Alex's ethical decision about whether to continue the experiment is now completely irrelevant.
It's a choice of survival.
Survival. He has to protect his work, the subjects, and the secret itself from an external force that will either weaponize it or destroy it.
And the sources capture his final thought, right? He realized that discovery, power, and morality were intertwined.
And that the world outside was not going to wait for him to figure it all out. The ethical crisis became a literal ticking clock.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The serum of collective consciousness offered this extraordinary power, this collective awareness, but Alex totally failed to manage the risks.
He did. It led to escalating chaos.
The lesson here really is about institutional oversight and the speed at which ambition can just outpace caution, forcing a moral crisis to become a fight for survival.
And if we zoom out on that idea, the collective consciousness, that unstable network where all fear and euphoria is shared and magnified, it raises a really important question.
What happens next?
Right. If the agents succeed in breaching that lab and confront these 5 connected, chaotic minds, what happens when that collective consciousness...
Which is no longer fully human.
Not at all. What happens when it's forced to interact with the external world?
Is the true danger of this serum not the individual transformation, but the network it created? The chaotic power that network now holds over any approaching threat.
That's something for you to mull over.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.